The path to crypto agility and being ready for post-quantum cryptography will require some hardware and software upgrades. NIST's finalists for PQC ciphers are expected in 2024, and time is running out to prepare for their implementation. We take a look at some real products available today that will be post-quantum ready in this episode of the Post-Quantum World. I'm your host, Konstantinos Karagiannis. I lead quantum computing services at Protiviti, where we're helping companies prepare for the benefits and threats of this exploding field. I hope you'll join each episode as we explore the technology and business impacts of this post-quantum era. Our guest today is the VP of Business Development at Quintessence Labs, Skip Norton. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi, Consta. Appreciate being here. Thanks for the invitation and look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah. So I've been hearing a lot about Quintessence Labs for quite a while. You've probably been there as long as it's been a company, right? That's possible.
I would say not quite. Actually, the company was founded in 2008, and we're based out of Canberra, Australia. And our CEO, Vikram Sharma, he had this very, very keen interest in quantum cybersecurity, started working with the unis in Australia, and then started Quintessence Labs, started working with the Australian Defense Department around some quantum-based technologies, primarily quantum key distribution. And so had been going on for some time. And I actually, this last January, celebrated my 5th year with Quintessence Labs. And that being said, that I've got over 30 years in industry, the cybersecurity industry, specifically in the areas of encryption and cryptography. That's pretty much been my expertise is in that area.
Yeah, and it's obviously important for a company like Quintessence Labs that is an area of focus there. And people do like to hear in general how we all end up in the industry. So for you, like you said, it was years of InfoSec, and then you migrated to the quantum bug.
The answer is yes to that, but not so much by intent. And kind of I'll explain how that kind of came about. But anyway, you end up with the company because they've reached out, you reached out, but we connected 5+ years ago. And originally when I started, Quintessence Lab had the quantum thing going, but our primary product, actually, and our flagship product is called the Trusted Security Foundation. And this is a key management platform. It's an enterprise key manager. But in the development of the key management platform, plus the stuff that Vikram was doing in the early days around QKD, we developed another product called QStream. And QStream is a quantum random number generator. So when you have these key management platforms, you need to seed your encryption keys with random numbers. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, that's done with pseudo-random numbers. And they have some deterministic characteristics, which make them vulnerable, not totally vulnerable. They can be very, very strong. But when we develop this product, what we actually provide is true random numbers, and there is no deterministic algorithms or methodology there. It's truly a random thing. So what's interesting about Quintessence Labs and how I got there is really the start is around classical encryption or classical cybersecurity with the key management platform. In other words, that's a solution that addresses things right here, right now, not necessarily quantum in nature. And that would also be true actually for the QStream to quantum random number generator. It actually solves problems here that aren't necessarily quantum safe oriented. The fact is, the stronger and the higher quality your entropy for your encryption keys, the stronger your cryptographic system. So when I started, it was primarily key management with this quantum capability, but there's been this change, and the change has actually been in the last couple of years. Nobody was talking quantum entropy. Hardly anybody was talking QKD, or even, by the way, the quantum resistant algorithms, which is the heart of the quantum safe crypto environment, right? Or post quantum crypto. It's really around the algorithms. So it was, even for the company and for myself, a transition from the classical encryption and which is right here, right now, to what we see happening is developing a quantum safe cryptographic security posture, right? So we're in the midst of that. And I would say midst, it's right smack dab in the middle. So I hope hope that helped.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of how I got here.
What I tell customers now is, you could consider this stuff due diligence you have to do anyway. You can be in a company where no one even believes quantum computers will be powerful enough to crack encryption. Who cares? Because once these ciphers start being deprecated, you have to do something about it. You have to have stronger keys. You have to have, different ciphers in place. You have to have different solutions. So this is like a security problem anyway. This is something that you want to have strength in. So we'll dig into the different products you do. So I guess let's start with entropy, just this idea of entropy. If you want to give a little high level of what that means in your solution.
Our product is called QStream, and really what it is, it's a PCIe adapter, and basically that's a card that would go like in a server. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we provide a software development kit that enables you to integrate this solution into your application. Primarily, these applications will be encryption applications because when it comes to encryption keys, you need to seed those with random numbers. And again, as I stated earlier, primarily that's done with pseudo-random numbers, but we're providing what's called true random numbers. And that means there's no deterministic factors to that. And that makes it a higher quality entropy. Therefore, your encryption keys are stronger. And that's really kind of the gist there. You want strong encryption keys for encryption applications. So you can take this QStream card, integrate it into your cryptographic environment. And we also do that service for customers. We take that card and we actually put it in our own appliance, a network attached appliance. Mm-hmm. But actually the integration is done. So it's kind of like entropy, quantum entropy out of the box. So you can just suck your entropy right out of it and send it to your entropy pool, your target application. So QStream quantum random number generator, it generates 1 gigabit per second, which is fastest in industry, 1 gigabit per second of true random numbers, providing 100% quantum entropy. And again, the two form factors are the PCI card for integration purposes and then a network attached appliance. And again, around the network attached appliance, the value in that is actually providing yourself internally or even externally, like entropy as a service, kind of like you have software as a service, key management as a service, everything as a service. Well, you can also have entropy as a service. And so we've stood up our own entropy as a service capability, but any customer could acquire technologies and do that for themselves.
So yeah, we try to push people to a modular approach to development because when you have to replace ciphers or whatever in the future, you're going to have to be able to swap things in and out. So in this case, you can have an application call out to this appliance and get the entropy it needs to do some seeding process, right? With the SDK.
Yeah, that's correct. And actually, if you go into the kind of the crypto world, there are like industry standards and APIs. Like in the key management world, there's the KMIP interoperability standard, and then there's one that's called, actually, it's really the heart of cryptographic integration, called PKCS11. But Java has an API, Microsoft has an API that enables you to integrate into cryptographic systems. But for all of these APIs, they'll have a distinct call that says grab random or get random for their cryptographic applications, right? So when you do this integration, that's what you're doing. You're waiting for that call that says, hey, give me some random numbers so I can put it in and seed my keys.
And for listeners who don't know, the pseudo-random problem is, of course, that a lot of random numbers are generated based on the clock that a classical CPU is running on. And over time, you can see that they're not random. If you get billions and billions of numbers, you could see patterns. You could see that you can start to predict things. It almost starts to feel like a side channel attack if you have enough of these so-called random numbers. So what actual process does your device use that makes it quantum? I know Maxwell would be really excited if he could live to hear a conversation about, generating entropy, without using a little mythical demon. So what do you do with Quintessence Labs daemon to make this entropy here?
So actually on the QStream, the QRNG card, right? Mm-hmm. We use what it's actually called quantum mechanics or quantum techniques. And what we utilize, and this is at a very, very high level, may not be super technical, but at a high level, we use a tunneling diode. And with that diode, we actually to turn it on. Fundamentally, it's not on. But what's really, really interesting is kernel particles actually still get through it. And as those particles get through the diode, it generates some noise. And then we digitize that noise for the random numbers. In other words, there's nothing deterministic about it. It's truly random as those particles end up making it through that tunneling diode. So that's really technically called quantum mechanics.
Yeah. Semiconductor. People don't realize when we do this hard divide, right? Classical computing, quantum computing. People don't realize that most of the components that make classical computing possible are quantum. Semiconductors, they operate on quantum principles, so that makes sense, using the diode to have random particles that ignite and form like a noise pattern that becomes a quantum number. It would be difficult to reverse.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Yep. Spot on. You accurately described it.
Well, sometimes we ask questions we know the answers to. What are you gonna that's what happens. So we have this ability to generate these, and that will, like you said, it's not even about quantum or not in terms of the threat. You're just generating really strong numbers. You're increasing entropy. This is a good thing, and will continue to be a good thing in the future. Now, for other factors that will be involved in becoming post-quantum ready, talk to me a little bit about your key management solution.
We call it the Trusted Security Foundation, and it's a key management application. It's software. It is a software, and then the acronym you hear in industry is KMS, a key management system or server. And so our KMS, it's software. And it's a full enterprise key manager. It does everything you would anticipate or expect a key manager to do. Full life cycle key management of encryption keys, supporting all the classical encryption algorithms out there. Primarily symmetrical algorithms would be your AES, and then the asymmetrical side, RSA, ECC. So we do everything you would expect, including scalability, replication, granular policy management, administration, pretty much all of those things. And there's a number of vendors that do exactly what we do, right? So, but what's happening in the encryption world, and this is where, kind of sliding and moving over to the quantum safe approach, is NIST has come out with what we call quantum resistant algorithms. And four candidates, they finalized on these four here this last year, but industry is still waiting for NIST to actually make them standards with specifications so that they can actually be implemented into these cryptographic applications and systems, right? So while we have something official, it's still not official yet until NIST says it's official. But that being said, vendors such as ourselves, and like every key management vendor out there, every hardware security vendor out there, your certificate authorities, anybody doing anything on the asymmetrical side of encryption, because this is where the greatest threat is when it comes to quantum computing. It's not to the symmetrical stuff like AES. That is considered quantum safe. But the asymmetrical algorithms like RSA and ECC, that's basically what's being replaced with these QRA or post-quantum crypto algorithms. That's what NIST is determined to decide if that's what they're going to do. So what industry has to do is over time implement these algorithms. And so when you look at the asymmetrical, you can see actually it's a very, very broad market that's addressed by asymmetrical. All your digital identities, your digital credentials, machine identities, things of that nature are primarily done with PKI, the public key infrastructure, public and private keys, RSA, ECC, and the such. So those are going to be replaced. Vendors such as ourselves doing key manager, if you have an algorithm, well, you know what? You need to manage that with a key management application, and that's what we do. So we're working with partners. We're actually implementing the chosen QRA algorithms within our key management platform so we can manage those too. And it's safe to say that pretty much every vendor, again, I said this earlier, doing key management, hardware security modules, asymmetrical encryption applications, they're doing things likewise. We're all preparing for this move and this shift to these algorithms, yet to be official, but nonetheless move towards that. So, which poses a question, what happens to the old algorithms, the RSA and the ECCs? What we talk about in the area of key management and encryption in general is this thing called crypto agility. And you're going to hear industry, especially on the key management side, talk about being crypto agile. That's where we're quantum safe from a key management perspective. Well, what does that mean? But so crypto agility fundamentally means this: transitioning from one cryptographic platform or algorithm to another in a seamless and painless way as possible, with minimal impact to what the users of these algorithms, whether it's digital identities, protecting their information, whatever they might be doing. You know, the interesting thing about this is we've done this before. This isn't like a new event or even so much a recent event. We did this actually with symmetrical algorithms because wasn't that long ago, 20, 30 years ago, we were using DES, and then we moved to triple DES, and then we moved to AES. So this is, again, not a unique experience, but on this side, it's on the asymmetrical side. And so we'll be replacing RSA and ECC with these new post-quantum crypto algorithms. So how does that happen? Well, over time, eventually, you'll move from RSA to these then ECC, the what we call the classical algorithms, to these new QRA algorithms. This will take time. It doesn't happen overnight, and nobody expects it to. You can see RSA and ECC actually having some shelf life of another 5+ years over time, because ultimately the concern is what the quantum computing attack on these algorithms. And again, that's not here right now. That's something that's expected to happen in the depending on who you talk to, 10 years, something along that line, maybe as soon as 5, but probably more about 10 out. So there'll be a lifespan for the classical asynchronous algorithms, but we'll transition to the PQC algorithms. But somewhere in between, you're going to have a bit of a hybrid too, where you'll be using some of the classical stuff and you're going to be using some of the PQC stuff and some of them at the same time. Again, that's where key management systems of ourselves have to make this type of transition as fundamentally easy for the end users as they do their implementation. So that's really what crypto agility is all about, moving from this classical stuff to the PQC algorithms in a smooth process, but also not at once, over time, and even having this hybrid experience too. So our key manager will play in that space. And again, there are a number of notable vendors that do exactly what we're doing and will do exactly what we're doing.
Okay. So in some ways, this is a product that you can buy now because it's a key manager. And if you buy it now, you're future proofing because you will be having a path forward to post-quantum cryptography. What does that path look like, though? Do you already include, let's say, Crystal's Kyber in there as something people can play around with? Or are you just taking a wait and see approach for the actual final standards before you stick those in?
So we've already done some integration and testing and demonstration. And then, like I said, our industry is doing that. Anybody that has asymmetrical, if they have any forethought at all, they're already doing the testing and implementation, knowing that they'll have to do some, I would say, tweaks down the road. But nonetheless, we're already positioned where we can demonstrate our PQC capability with our key manager. But it's demonstrative, right? It wouldn't what we would say in production.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's exactly
yeah.
right. That's exactly right. So we're in a position to demonstrate this capability.
Okay. And are there any thoughts to introducing sort of like a hybrid solution for people who do want to get started? Like, for example, in AWS, you can today use one version of TLS that has like a quantum safe wrapper around standard ECDSA. Like, are you going to be implementing anything like that in the interim or waiting pretty much for the standard?
We'll be in a position where, number one, we will do that, are doing that, and we'll be in a position to do that because you need to demonstrate that you're moving towards that direction, right? So absolutely, without question. And again, all of industry pretty much will be doing that. If you look at the major players, we'll all be in a position where we can demonstrate this hybrid capability.
Okay. And I think this would be a good time to maybe move into a little bit about what you're doing in the key distribution space.
When we look at key distribution from at least the quantum perspective, and again, quantum key distribution, QKD, we are developing a product that's called Q-Optica. And I would say we're in the POC mode. When you look at the market, though, taking a step back or looking at the market, there are really two primary vendors in this space, and that's Toshiba and ID Quantique. And they have what's called a discrete variable capability that requires dedicated fiber for what they do. We're taking a different approach. We're utilizing what's called continuous variable QKD, CV-QKD. And what that enables us to do is actually use COTS, a commercial off-the-shelf product, fiber, as opposed to having dedicated links. So that's probably the primary advantage of CV-QKD over DV-QKD. And from a basically what this QKD does, though, in its most simplistic form, it is distributing keys from point A to point B, the classical Alice to Bob, right? So you have Alice, you'll have a basically appliance at one end, that's Alice, and an appliance at another end, that's Bob, and you're able to distribute keys Alice to Bob. That's what it does. It's a key distribution. It's not a key manager. It's not an encryption device. It's not PQC encryption. It isn't any of those things. It is the distribution of keys from A to B. And of course, and again, we use, CV-QKD versus DV-QKD. So that being said, what's happening where you're using quantum physics for the transport of these keys, and really what we're looking to detect as they are being transported is any deviation in the communication link that's primarily noise-based. And you can sense that. And once you sense that, basically you've disrupted the transmission, then the key basically becomes, if you want to look at it this way, like vaporized. It doesn't exist anymore. And that's all we're looking for is actually changes in the link itself. And anytime there is any type of change, it is immediate, whether it is true or not, it's immediately assumed that it's a compromise. So you immediately go into this, the destruction of the key and the termination of the communication. So at a very, very high level, that's how it works. Our product, Q-Optica, we are now delivering what we're calling POC units. We're, I would say, kind of in the beta mode. Toshiba, ID Quantique, they've had commercialized product for a couple of years now. Yep. So I would say we're new to the market, although our experience around QKD is not new because we had been doing projects for the last 5-8 years in Australia with the government there. But now we're commercializing it, and Q-Optica will be that solution.
Do you have any ideas? I mean, it's okay if it's still not public or whatever. Do you have an idea on the bit rate of what you can get as pure key data?
So I don't have that information in front of me, but from a distance perspective, we're in the 30 to 50 kilometer range. Knowing that once you go farther out, your performance degrades. So that's where we sit from a distance perspective.
Yeah, back in the early days, we used to get something like 1.4 megabits per second of key data, which isn't really enough to use as a true one-time pad, because that's pretty sad, right? If you told someone their network would be 1.4 megabits per second. So we used to use it in AES counter mode and send actual updated keys like that. It would be fascinating to see if one day we can get that speed output to be something like a true one-time pad. Because talk about unbreakable. I mean, it's complete random, as far as the transmission is. So how long before you think people will be playing with these in their companies, the device?
Imminent. Okay. We expect deliveries this quarter.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's
getting
super.
Yeah, no. We have candidates already in place. And actually what's really interesting is, again, when I talked about joining the company 5 years ago, nobody was having these discussions, right? And now there is a demand and a demand for our product in particular because of the CV approach versus the DV approach, right? We're unique in that way. So people are wanting to get their hands on it. And we're talking, when you look at the market, the usual suspects, it's always government, financial institutions. And then I can put like service providers, large enterprises that are looking to test these things and see where they fit in their, cryptographic ecosystem. Because the one thing you need, as regards to QKD, it is a high ticket item, and its use case is very unique in a point to point nature for limited distances, right? So
one building to another.
That's right. And so the use cases are relatively limited, but that's for now. 10 years from now, we're going to be having a completely different conversation around QKD.
Sure. With quantum networking and things like that, we might rely on QKD to be the thing that keeps that required network safe, right?
No, that's right. And right now we're talking just encryption keys. Well, at some point that's going to be that'll be data, not just keys.
Yeah, exactly. back to that whole one-time pad idea, like what will that look like in the
Right.
future? It'll be fascinating to see. So I have a question. So Quintessence Labs is in Australia, right? And we all know that the White House in the US put out the big NSM-10 memo, and it set the timeline for what they want to start doing in federal agencies, and we expect private industry to follow. Eventually, they're going to start with their timeline of deprecation. So how do things like that impact your company? So you're in Australia, but obviously you want to be selling to the US and the world. Will you be taking that path to cipher deprecation as sort of like your roadmap to what customers will be expecting around the world? Is there like a global anticipation for what is said by, NSA and NIST when they agree on this?
Looking at what our government is doing, really the heart of this is around the algorithms themselves, not so much around the other technologies. I say that we provide like QKD, QRNG. They're not really, they're a small portion of this overall, what we call that, quantum safe ecosystem, right? It's primarily around the algorithms and the implementation of that. Our strength in doing that is around our key management platform, and then of course the quantum entropy for the speeding of these keys. And for us, it's just you don't want to put it this way, but I'll put it this way. We're along for the ride. Where the industry goes, that's where we go, because it's more of, they're providing the direction, the standard, the time frames, the timing, and all of those things. It's incumbent on us is to maintain our connection to that and making sure our products meet those requirements. So the answer is yes, we're going to be along for the ride. But again, the emphasis is primarily around the algorithms. When you look at what the U.S. government has done and with these initiatives, it's really around the QRA algorithms primarily. Now, at some point in some time, because at least up to this point, NSA has not put any kind of affirmative energy behind QKD, and in fact, probably the opposite of that. They're not opposed to it. They just haven't made it part of their, ecosystem per se. And then they've put all their weight behind the algorithms today.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because we need to fix the problem. We need to replace everywhere that math-based solutions exist with something math-based.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
So, no, this was really helpful. I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we just did an episode about that White House document and what it means for the future. So I thought it was important for listeners to hear sort of like what a boots on the ground approach already looks like, what's happening in the space of hardware and getting companies ready. Did you have anything else you want to plug? Anything else coming out?
I just want to say this is an industry movement, not a singular vendor movement, right?
Absolutely.
Everything that we're doing, we can expect industry to do. And that this isn't the first time industry has done this. It just happens to be asymmetrical versus symmetrical this time, which, by the way, a different plethora of use cases compared to, say, symmetrical kind of thing. In regards to what we do at Quintessence Labs, we do put ourselves out as this. Number one, we're still addressing classical cybersecurity encryption problems and issues, right, and use cases. We do that right here, right now. But we are positioning ourselves through QRNG, QKD, and crypto agility to meet this quantum safe, issue or problem that we know that's at the forefront. So we think we're in a unique position in that way, in that we have classical solutions, but we also have quantum safe solutions. And in that regard, I think we're very, very well positioned in the marketplace.
Yep. Sounds good. Thanks a lot for sharing all that information. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for your time, Constant.
Now it's time for Coherence, the Quantum Executive Summary, where I take a moment to highlight some of the business impacts we discussed today in case things got too nerdy at times. Let's recap. Quintessence Labs has been working on post-quantum cryptography since 2008. It has encryption products that both help customers stay secure today and will enable the migration to PQC in the near future. QStream is a quantum random number generator that creates 1 gigabit per second of true random numbers from a quantum source. It's quantum entropy out of the box that can strengthen keys, compared to systems using pseudo-random numbers. Trusted Secure Foundation is software that manages enterprise keys and policies. This QMS promises crypto agility for easily integrating NIST's finalists starting next year when the standard's published. Quintessence Labs is already testing the expected finalists in the lab. In the quantum key distribution space, Quintessence Labs is working on a device called Q-Optica that uses continuous variable QKD or CV-QKD to send keys over existing fiber and free open air. Unlike DV-QKD, which uses single photons, CV-QKD uses a modulated laser, which should be more cost-effective and provide better performance. It's still point-to-point, of course. That does it for this episode. Thanks to Skip Norton for joining to discuss Quintessence Labs and the practical path to PQC. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to Protivity's The Post-Quantum World, and maybe leave a review to help others find us. Be sure to follow me on all socials at Constant Hacker. That's Constant with a K, Hacker. You'll find links there to what we're doing in quantum computing services at Protivity. You can also DM me questions or suggestions for what you'd like to hear on the show. For more information on our quantum services, check out Protivity.com or follow Protivity Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn. Until next time, be kind and stay quantum curious.